Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reeds, and this is the review of the long awaited standalone sequel to the 1996 blockbuster Twisters. And this go around, we have Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell starring in this film. Uh, I say standalone sequel because it's not a direct sequel to Twister. If you're going in expecting to see any connective tissue to that 1996 film, you're going to be disappointed. But there is maybe one or two things, but it's offshoots. There's nothing that is driving this story or any character connections or anything of that sort. The only thing that connects this film from to the first film are the tornadoes themselves. The fact that this film has tornadoes. But Twisters follows a retired tornado chaser and meteorologist who is persuaded to return to Oklahoma to work with a new team and new technology. That is a similar log line to the first Twister, if you want to be completely honest here, but it's done with his own little twist. See what I did there? Nice little nugget, little dad joke for you. But anyway, it has its own little flavor to what we saw back in 1996. This film is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and I don't know much about him other than the fact that he directed a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian, you know, that Star Wars show on Disney Plus. Other than that, I don't know any other features that he directed. But in reference to Twisters, in a day and age where we are clamoring, at least we so-called claim to be clamoring for original movies in theaters, original ideas, even though when they do put out original ideas and content on the big screen, nobody goes to see them. Nobody goes to see them, and then you wonder why we can't get original stuff in theaters. Why we got to get these rehashes, these reboots and remakes and sequels and shared universes and stuff of that nature, because nobody goes to see anything original. But allegedly, the the public is clamoring for originality. And in the day and age when we are in that frame of mind, Twisters is a great sequel. I think this is everything that it was billed out to be. Everything that you expect in a Twister film. This is a hands down exciting, fun summer movie to go to the theater to see. And this brought me back. When I was sitting in the theater watching this, it felt like back in my teenage years when these summer blockbusters would come out and, you know, run into the theater to go see them. Lee Isaac Chung did a really good job with this movie. It never slows down. It never gets to the point where, okay, we get tornado, and then 45 minutes of nothing, and then the big tornado at the end. It actually had story. It actually had character development in here. It took time for your it took those moments, I should say, to develop characters, to develop relationships, to move the story, as opposed to just action, dodging debris and all this other stuff, and then at the end, oh, I love you, you know, with the two main characters. No, it actually took its time with that. But when I say took its time, it was fast paced, but you still believed it. Daisy Edgar Jones, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I loved her in this role. In comparisons, and I hate doing this with films, but it is a quote unquote sequel to Twister, so I can't do anything but compare it to its predecessor. So if I take Daisy Edgar Jones' character and put her side by Helen Hunt's character in the original, I enjoyed her a little bit more here. I loved her story. I loved her arc. I loved what drove her. It wasn't like Helen Hunt's character in the first film, who was driven by rage and revenge by what a tornado did to her as a kid, uh, uh, killing her father, taking her father, and that was pretty much her motivation for the film. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that that was it. Where, opposed to Daisy Edgar Jones' character in this film, who is motivated by different things. You know, actually, she had to be roped back in. You can argue, you can actually make an argument that her character is more similar to Bill Paxton's character in the original than it is to Helen Hunt, because that's what happened to him. He got roped back in to this storm chasing, but she goes on a journey from where we meet her in the first film. The first film, when we meet her at the beginning of the film, on to the end of this movie, and it was a joy to watch, to see this character go on this journey, to have her character arc played out for us. Loved it, and I loved her performance here. I love the chemistry between her and the other actors in this film. One in particular, of course, is Glenn Powell, who I guess you could say 2024 is the year of Glenn Powell. You know, Glenn Powell has been on a run this year, actually for the past couple of years, to be honest with you, and I'm not mad at it. I like Glenn Powell. He in this film, in this particular film, I actually felt movie star from him. I felt a movie star presence from him in this film. His character is this just crazy, thrill-seeking, adrenaline-seeking man who goes out and try to wrangle these tornadoes. You know, have fun, have his own YouTube channel, and he's built this kind of a YouTube following and content creator. But that's not him. That's just him on the surface. There's more to his character internally, and once again, flushed out well. Very, very good job with that character and with the chemistry between him and Daisy Edgar Jones, who I guess you could say were love interests, but not your typical Hollywood love story that we get here, you know, where at the end they kiss and they embrace in the midst of the storm, and oh, it was so beautiful. It wasn't all that. You know, they actually built a relationship throughout this film, throughout the process of what they were going through, and it was fun to watch. Now, is it believable at times? A little, you know, it is a little sketchy, but hey, it's a movie, so you you know, I'm not expecting a documentary here, so I went with it, and it worked for me. I liked Anthony Ramos in this film. Anthony Ramos has another character who goes on a journey throughout this film, from where we began with him at the start to where we end with him at the end. It is a journey that was pleasant to watch. A big fan of Anthony Ramos and all of the supporting cast in this film, which we have a hidden gem in this movie. One of the actors in this film, David Cornsweet, we're going to see a year from now as he suits up as Superman, Clark Kent himself. And so it was fun to see him pop up in this film, even though his character was the one character I did not like in this movie. Um, it was weird, because I'm sitting there, as soon as he popped up on screen, I was like, well, he's the antagonist. I knew. I mean, he wasn't the villain, but he's the antagonist, and I could tell from the moment he popped up on screen. It's one of these things, and this is the one spoiler I'm gonna give, and it's not really a spoiler, but it's something that happened in the movie that, you know, whatever. Whenever you see a character in any movie, I don't care if it's a comedy, a cartoon, action movie, drama, thriller, horror, I don't care what it is. If you see a character pop up on the film or in the film and he's chewing gum, he's the bad guy. That's just that. That is the telltale sign in film. And the first scene he popped up in, he's chewing gum like a horse, and I'm like, yep, he's gonna turn at the end, or in the middle of the movie, whatever. But it just it drove me crazy, and I guess that's the design of the character to make you just dislike him because it worked. I can't stand when people chew gum like that. Chew gum and talk. It gives off pompous attitude to me. But anywho's, that's the one character I didn't like. It wasn't David Cornsweet's performance. It was the character and the way that character was written and kind of just thrown out there to be bad. But he wasn't bad. He wasn't a villain. But anyway, moving on to the special effects. One of the alluring things from the 1996 film was the visual effects. You know, that trailer from the first film when we saw that tractor tire hit the windshield. You know, it ended up not even being in the movie, but if you watched the DVD or Blu-ray behind the scenes and all this here, that was actually the test footage to see if they can actually pull it off digitally with the visual effects. That was the little snippet that they used to test the see. So they just threw it into the trailer for some strange reason, and it didn't end up in the movie, but whatever. Because I know a lot of people, including me, who left out that theater in 1996, and like, where was the tractor? Where was that tire? Because that's what drew you into that movie. But anyways, as far as the movie itself, with the tornadoes and how Jan de Bont, the director of the first film, shot that film, it felt like a real thing. If back then, of course, now some of the visual effects are a little choppy, but there's no film with perfect visual effects. Let's just get that through our head. To be honest with you, Twister, you can put up against some films that came out now in 2024, and the visual effects look better for that film than they do now. So it holds up for the most part, but the visual effects is what you wanted to see in that film, because up to that point you didn't see a lot of visual effects in movies to that degree. I think Jurassic Park came out, was it that same year or the year before? It was around the same time, so it was starting to amp up, with Terminator 2s and the Abyss of the world and all this other stuff, where we saw these visual effects go take it to the next level. And so with Twisters, how are we going to take it up to the next level? How are we going to kick it into high gear? Not so much. It didn't really take it to another level, because what more can you do? It's tornadoes. How can you show them in a different way? It's really no way you can show them in a different way. But it was a couple of scenes where it did look a little exciting. It was kind of white knuckled in the theater. Your blood pressure was at sky high. Your chest, your heart was about to beat out your chest, because it was adrenaline filled. You felt it with the way they shot it, the way how close they were to these tornadoes. That was different, from the original film. They were right there, and all of the surroundings and things going on around them was just crazy, and it felt like real tornadoes. Whereas in the 1996 film, it felt like a movie. It really did feel like a movie. Now, granted, none of this felt super real. You have to suspend disbelief to a degree, but it did feel awfully real in the way that they depicted how close they got to these tornadoes, what they were willing to go through to study these tornadoes. And so for that, great job with the direction there, with the visual effects and the performances. My bugaboos of this film, like I said, no film is perfect, and this falls in that category as well. Number one being the timeline. I kind of lost track of the time that they were out there, from the moment that our main character Kate joins the team to chase these tornadoes to the end of the film. I don't know what the timeline is. Was it a couple of days? Was it a week? Was it 2 weeks? I don't know. Uh, it just felt kind of, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but because it was a scene, well, a couple of scenes in the middle where it was like a 2 day period that our two lead characters separate from the other co-stars in the film, and like nobody cared. It's like they just abandoned. But I say 2 days, but it felt longer, really. When they did link back up, and people were like, "Oh man, you're back!" It was like a super relief that they returned after all this time. 1 or 2 days wouldn't carry that reaction, but a week and a half, yeah. And so that's where I was kind of thrown off by. There's a scene in the second act of this film, the middle of this film, that involves a rodeo, and it really kind of confused me as to why we are here. Now, what happens at the rodeo was cool and all that, but it was kind of confusing as to why is everybody just cool, because just a scene or two prior to this we saw complete devastation. We saw look like an apocalypse that took place because of these tornadoes, and we have characters just chilling at this rodeo. Afterwards, it was no big deal, and I'm like, are we really doing this? we just gonna act like what happened didn't happen. Um, yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that. And my final bugaboo is the end of this film. The final tornado, the big bad tornado, if you will, at the end of this film. All of it was cool. The effects was awesome. The acting in this scene was awesome. Everything was cool. I just didn't like how it ended. I didn't like how they went about it, and I'm dancing around spoilers here because, to be honest with you, the only way to truly display my dismay with the scene is to spoil it. So I'm just gonna say I didn't like it. I didn't care for the events that took place during that last scene, even though it looked cool. I just didn't like it. But it is what it is. I did like the movie. I truly enjoyed this film. This was, like I said, this was a summer popcorn film to the highest degree. Does it have the same magic as the 1996 film? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have that same pizzazz as that first film, but I'm not gonna knock it for that because it's hard to match the the energy of a Bill Paxton and a Helen Hunt in that film. Bill Paxton, God rest his soul, was awesome all in everything that he was in, and especially in Twister. And so it's hard to match that. It's hard to match the thrill ride, the amusement park level ride that you go on at the end of that 1996 film, even though it was completely ridiculous, logically, but it was fun to go on that ride with them. No, this film doesn't have that same magic, but it is still a fun film, still I would say, worthy sequel to should I say classic from 1997? I'm gonna go ahead and say that. It is a worthy sequel to that film. Twisters, which stars Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell, gets a letter grade of a B minus. Really good time, fun movie. Really, I mean, one of the most exciting times I've had in the theater as far as watching the film. It was exciting, man. I was actually on the edge of my seat in some of those scenes, man. It was really, really fun to watch. I would love to know, what did you think of Twisters if you checked it out, or are you planning to check out Twisters? please let me know by email. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, the KB Radio Network channel, that is, and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of the standalone sequel to the 1996 classic Twisters. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.